year 1300, European mapmakers had a problem. They knew about Europe. They knew about the Middle East. They knew about parts of Asia. Marco Polo had just returned from China. But Africa? South of the Sahara? For most European cartographers, it simply didn't exist. Their maps showed the continent fading into blank space, sometimes labeled with the phrase, "Here be nothing." What those maps missed was extraordinary. While Europe was in the thick of the Middle Ages, while the Black Death was still decades away, while medieval kingdoms squabbled over small territories, the largest empire in the world was thriving in West Africa. The Mali Empire stretched from the Atlantic Ocean in the west to the bend of the Niger River in the east. It covered more land than Western Europe. It housed tens of millions of people. And it sat on top of something that made it the center of the known world's economy. Gold. Not some gold. More than half of the world's entire gold supply passed through Mali. The empire controlled the trans-Saharan trade routes, the arteries through which gold flowed north into North Africa, Egypt, and eventually Europe. Every gold coin circulating in medieval Cairo, in the bazaars of Marrakesh, in the markets of Genoa and Venice, had likely passed through Mali hands. Europe didn't just fail to know about Mali. It depended on Mali. It simply didn't know where the gold was coming from. The Mali Empire was built on a foundation of military genius and extraordinary luck. Its story begins with a man named Sundiata Keita, who founded the empire in 1235 after defeating the Soso kingdom at the Battle of Karina. Sundiata was a warrior king who had survived a childhood of disability and exile to unite a confederation of Mandinka clans and forge the most powerful state West Africa had ever seen. Under Sundiata and his successors, Mali expanded aggressively. It absorbed the former Ghana Empire to the north, gaining control of the crucial Saharan gold trade routes. It pushed east along the Niger River, adding the great trading cities of Djenné and Timbuktu to its domain. It pushed west toward the Atlantic, controlling the entire Senegambian coastline. And through all of this expansion, Mali was doing something its neighbors were not. It was building institutions, scholarly centers, courts of law, an administrative apparatus that could govern an empire spanning thousands of miles. Timbuktu, in particular, became one of the great intellectual centers of the medieval world. The Sankora Mosque and its associated university attracted scholars from across the Islamic world. Mathematicians, astronomers, historians, jurists. At its peak, the University of Sankora had 25,000 students in the 14th century. In West Africa, Europe's oldest university, Bologna, had been founded in 1088. Timbuktu was not far behind. In 1312, a man named Musa Keita became the 10th Mansa, the emperor of Mali. He would reign for 25 years, and in that time, he would transform Mali from a powerful regional empire into a civilization so magnificent that it would astonish the entire medieval world. Mansa Musa was a devout Muslim. He observed Islamic law, patronized scholars and architects, and made the fulfillment of the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, one of his central ambitions. In 1324, he announced his intention to make the journey. What followed was one of the most extraordinary events in medieval history. Mansa Musa assembled a procession of 60,000 people. 12,000 of them were his personal servants, each dressed in silk and brocade, each carrying a staff of gold. 500 of them marched directly ahead of the emperor himself, each carrying a golden staff weighing 6 pounds. 100 camels followed, each loaded with 300 pounds of pure gold dust. This was not an army. This was Mansa Musa going on a religious pilgrimage. This was him traveling light. The procession crossed the Sahara, the most punishing terrain on earth. Mansa Musa made the journey with enough resources to sustain 60,000 people across one of the world's largest deserts. When Mansa Musa arrived in Cairo in 1324, the Egyptian Sultan al-Nasir Muhammad came out to meet him. This was extraordinary. The Sultan of Egypt was one of the most powerful rulers in the Islamic world. He did not come out to meet visitors. He received them. But Mansa Musa was not a visitor to be received. He was a peer. And every person in Cairo understood this the moment his procession entered the city. Mansa Musa distributed gold everywhere. He gave gifts to every official, every dignitary, every scholar he met. He funded the construction of a mosque in Cairo. He gave gold to the poor in the streets. His entourage bought everything in sight: Fine fabrics, spices, horses, goods of every kind, paying in gold, always in gold, never haggling on price. He was so wealthy that the concept of price seemed irrelevant to him. Contemporaries estimated that Mansa Musa and his entourage spent and gave away so much gold during their time in Cairo and along the pilgrimage route that they flooded the Mediterranean gold market. The price of gold collapsed. In Cairo, the value of gold fell by roughly 25% and did not recover for 12 years. Think about what that means. One man's generosity, not his army, not his trade policy, not his conquest, just his charity, his gift-giving, caused economic disruption across an entire region that lasted over a decade. The Egyptian chronicler Al-Umari, who interviewed people who had witnessed Mansa Musa's visit, wrote, "This man has flooded his country with kindness and beneficence. He has brought ruin to the gold market." Mansa Musa's pilgrimage had a second consequence beyond the gold market crash. He met people. Specifically, he met architects. On his return journey, Mansa Musa recruited a renowned Andalusian architect named Abu Ishaq al-Sahili. He brought him back to Mali with a gift of 200 pounds of gold, a single hiring bonus. Al-Sahili transformed Mali's built environment. He designed the Great Mosque of Djenné, a stunning mud brick structure that still stands today and is recognized as one of the greatest works of architecture in Africa. He designed palaces and audience halls for Mansa Musa, introducing new architectural forms that blended Islamic and West African traditions. Mali was now not only the wealthiest empire in the world, it was becoming one of the most architecturally magnificent. Under Mansa Musa's continued patronage, Timbuktu expanded its universities. Scholars arrived from Morocco, Egypt, Persia. The city's libraries held an estimated 1 million manuscripts, more books than existed in all of Europe at the same time. Mali was, in every measurable sense, the most advanced civilization in the Western world during the 14th century. In 1375, a Majorcan cartographer named Abraham Cresques completed what became known as the Catalan Atlas, one of the most important maps ever made. In its depiction of West Africa, the Catalan Atlas showed something no European map had ever shown before: a king sitting on a throne, holding a golden scepter and orb, surrounded by golden text. The caption identified him as Musa Mali, Lord of the Negroes of Guinea, so abundant is the gold which is found in his country. For the first time, European cartographers had acknowledged that someone, existed in sub-Saharan Africa, and what they put there was the image of a man holding pure gold, so wealthy that he was the most prominent figure on the entire map. The image of Mansa Musa, golden scepter in hand, became a fixture of European cartography for the next century. Mapmakers who had never heard of Mali suddenly depicted it. The empire was so definitively wealthy that even Europeans who had never met an African king understood this man was the richest person in the world. And they were right. Modern economists estimate Mansa Musa's total wealth at somewhere between $400 and $415 billion in today's terms. No one in recorded history has come close to that figure. The Mali Empire did not last forever. After Mansa Musa's death in 1337, the empire began a slow decline. Succession disputes weakened central authority. The Songhai kingdom to the east grew in power and began absorbing Mali's eastern territories. By the late 1400s, the empire had fractured. What lasted was something harder to destroy than territory. The manuscripts of Timbuktu survived. Scholars and their families hid them during invasions, buried them in desert sand, carried them across the Sahara. Today, scholars estimate that between 300,000 and 700,000 medieval manuscripts still exist in and around Timbuktu. Islamic philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, legal scholarship, history. Written and preserved by West Africans while Europe was still centuries from its own scientific revolution. The Mali Empire left no ruins as famous as Rome's Colosseum, no pyramids like Egypt, no temples like Greece. It left knowledge, encoded in manuscripts, in the architectural traditions of Timbuktu, in the oral histories of the Mandinka people. And it left this understanding that when Europe was pulling itself out of the Dark Ages, when it believed itself to be the center of civilization, there was an empire 3 times its size on the other side of the Sahara, with 25,000 students in its universities, 1 million manuscripts in its libraries, and an emperor so wealthy that his charity alone could destabilize an entire continent's economy. Europe never knew it existed. And that perhaps tells us more about Europe than it does about